help Black women navigate racism and workplace issues so that you can improve your mental health, your wellness, and your self-care. So before we get into it, let me just say this. First of all, I want to just give glory to God, because without Him, none of this would be possible. I thank God for the courage and the boldness to just hit the record button. On top of that, I want to shout out the whole Exodus Summit community. Shout out to Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dow, because they also were a big part of me starting my YouTube journey. Shout out to my therapist too. My therapist as well. She has been a very, very big part of my journey and just helping me along my own healing journey and getting to be where I am today. So I'm so excited about this channel. If you are having issues at work, you need to subscribe to my channel right now. Hit that notification bell as well, because I'm going to help you navigate that. Also, if you're experiencing racism in the workplace, this is the channel that you want to subscribe to as well, because I'm going to also be helping you navigate the different nuances that take place in the workplace. And on top of that, giving you some mental health, some wellness tips, just different things that you can do so that you can start to feel better, so that you can take better care of yourself, because that's what it's all about. Nobody has time to be stressed out behind a job. Like, your life, your well-being is more important. Right? So I want to make sure that you have the tools and the resources that you need to be successful. So, okay, let's get into the topic of this video, racial trauma. Just for starters, I just want to define racial trauma. So racial trauma is the ongoing exposure to experiences such as racism, discrimination, stereotypes, and/or biases that ultimately threaten your mental health and your well-being, and your emotional well-being. So it threatens your mental and emotional well-being primarily. As you'll see later on in this video, there can also be some physiological or physical symptoms that people experience as well. And so a lot of times what we're seeing in the Black community is that a lot of people are being impacted by racial trauma in the workplace. And so racism is occurring quite frequently in the workplace, and it leaves folks feeling very discouraged and not really knowing how to navigate it. And so that's exactly what this channel is here to do. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be your guide so that I can help you just figure out, one, how to take better care of yourself as you're working and going through, the different experiences at work. But I also want to be able to just give you some tools and resources and allow this to be a safe space for Black folks to just come and get the support they need. And I also want to just say that I am very passionate about creating safety in the workplace for Black folks. It's like my thing. Like, my whole dissertation was about this, y'all. So, I try to lend my expertise so that I can give you as much information, as much support as you need, okay? Next, let's talk about some of the symptoms of racial trauma. So for starters, racial trauma actually has similar symptoms to post-traumatic stress disorder. And so what that means is that some of the same symptoms that a person might experience with PTSD, you can experience some of those same symptoms with racial trauma. So you might experience hypervigilance to threat or sensitivity to threats. You may also experience nightmares or flashbacks. Some folks experience heart palpitation. What is also very common is anxiety and depressive symptoms. And so there are an array of different symptoms that a person can experience, including suspiciousness. You may have a tendency to isolate as well. So that's another thing that can occur. After you have had an encounter or experience of racism at work, you also may be a little avoidant. You may want to sit by yourself at lunch or go sit in your car on your lunch break because you don't want to be around people. And the same is true for outside of work. You might notice that you've gotten a little bit more withdrawn. You're not going out, hanging out with your friends and your family like you normally do. Another important thing to know about racial trauma is that it's very hard to diagnose. Right now, we don't have necessarily the capability to diagnose someone with racial trauma. The literature on racial trauma is still emerging, so research is still ongoing about racial trauma, but it just hasn't been quite recognized like we would want it to be just yet. We do have a way that you can assess whether or not you're experiencing racial trauma. We do have one validated measuring tool, and that tool is called the race-based traumatic stress symptom scale. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but racial trauma may also be referred to as race-based traumatic stress. Sometimes you may see terminology like race-based stressors or race-based stress. It's all the same. I just like to call it racial trauma, but it's the same. So just want to make sure I add that. So yeah, so when you are experiencing symptoms of racial trauma, you are going to have similar symptoms to post-traumatic stress disorder. We are going to move on. Signs that racial trauma might actually be affecting you. So if you are afraid to speak up at work, or you're having difficulty advocating for yourself, that is one of the signs that you may be experiencing racial trauma. Another thing, if you're finding that at work you are also feeling isolated or excluded, maybe you feel powerless, or you feel unseen or unheard. You're afraid of retaliation as well. Afraid of losing your job if you approach your supervisor or you mention it to someone. You may be kind of not sure of who you can trust, so you kind of keep your distance as well. And another thing, if you find yourself after you leave work complaining to your family or friends about your job, that's a sign that there might be some things happening in the environment that is also impacting you. If you find yourself feeling depressed or anxious after work, this could be another sign that racial trauma is affecting you. So perhaps when you get home, maybe you find yourself having a meltdown, a breakdown, you may be crying. Perhaps you have to have a glass of wine to calm your nerves because you are on 10 after such a stressful day, navigating everything that has been going on. So it could be very hard to just kind of unwind in racial trauma in the workplace. So I want to talk a little bit about how racial trauma could be showing up in the workplace. And racial trauma in the workplace essentially is experiences of racism and discrimination in the workplace, right? Devalued. You may feel devalued, overlooked, or overworked as well. A lot of times what we're seeing is that Black women are asked to take on their colleagues' work. So they're doing extra work, staying extra hours, working later, doing this, doing that on top of their own job responsibilities. And then what ends up happening is that a lot of times they're not being properly compensated for the work that they do. And so that leads to burnout, compassion fatigue, and ultimately you keeping yourself in this high stress kind of environment, and it's impacting you mentally, emotionally, and I'm sure physically. What we're finding with racial trauma, well, for one, Black women are actually more susceptible to racial trauma than any other racial group. Some of the experts believe that this is a result of our social location. So what that means is, Black women being Black, right? So our race, we're Black, and then our gender as a woman. And so being Black and being a woman, in so many cases, basically it says that you are more likely to experience different forms of oppression. In a way, it can have its disadvantages. And so, as I mentioned before, this is exactly why this channel is going to be so important, because I want to be able to help you navigate some of those nuances around racism at work, giving you some insight on what you could say to your supervisor, how to approach your supervisor, teaching you different skills that you can use and implement so that you feel comfortable addressing whatever concerns that you have at work. And then also, I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel encouraged and supported to be able to go and navigate these spaces where sometimes you don't always feel welcome or included. Another thing, being able to, it's important to realize that racial trauma does impact your mental and your emotional being, as I stated before. And so I want to be able to give you different tools and resources that you can use so that you can navigate these different scenarios. And so it's very important that you stick around to my channel, that you hit that subscribe button, you hit that notification button, because I want to make sure that you have what you need. You won't be out here thinking that you're alone and feeling powerless. And I've seen so many women in previous situations who have spoken up at work and they felt like they were demoted or they were fired, and a lot of times it's unfair. Discrimination is very hard to prove. You feeling like you are equipped to really navigate this is going to be so important for your overall well-being. I will have a new video. I will post a new video every week. However, when I am taking a break or indulging in my self-care, I will not be on YouTube. And I just want y'all to know I do not play about my self-care, and I want you to have that same attitude about your self-care because it is so important. We always do for everybody else. We put everybody else's needs in front of our own, but it's like, what about you? What about me? Like, you're important, and I want you to be able to start prioritizing putting your needs first. And it's not just, your physical needs, but your mental and emotional needs, right? Prioritizing your emotional well-being is also important. Being able to say no, being able to set healthy boundaries, like all those things that are so important to us that a lot of times we don't know how to do. If you're thinking, Dr. Brown, okay, I hear what you're saying, girl, you speak in my language, but you're wondering, well, what do I do now at work? Like, I know I'm going to wait for your videos, but what do I do right now while I'm navigating this racism at work? It's been getting really hard. Well, what you can do in the meantime, I really, really recommend that you seek a therapist that specializes in race-based stress or racial trauma. And it can be any licensed professional. It can be a psychologist. It can be a licensed social worker. It can be a licensed marriage and family therapist. It can be a licensed professional counselor such as myself. And I don't even know if I said that earlier in the video, but I'm a licensed therapist, yes. And I'm licensed in Georgia. So if you do live in Georgia and you are looking for a therapist, I can help you. But if you are not, that's okay. I do have a great resource that will be very helpful for you that you can take to the free consultation that the therapist gives you. Basically, if you look down below in the description, there will be a link to my website. If you scroll down and put in your name and your email address, okay, so you have to subscribe to my emails to get this free resource. You subscribe to my emails. Basically, what it'll do is it'll send you my resource, and it's basically 15 questions you should ask before you hire a therapist, okay? So you want to ask these 15 questions before you hire a therapist, and it'll just really give you some insight on being able to find the perfect therapist for you. And especially if it's your first time in therapy, you don't want to just end up with anybody. And I always say that looking for a therapist is like shopping around for the shoe that fits. Sometimes it takes a little time to look around. You want that shoe to pop. You want that shoe to be looking good with that birthday dress. You have to look around a little bit, okay? And I say that from personal experience. I have worked with a few therapists in my past, and they were okay for what I needed at that time. But then also knowing that changing a therapist, if you feel like your growth, like if you've been in therapy for a while and you feel like your progress is a little stunted, or you're not getting help with exactly you need, then it may be time for you to change to a new therapist. And I think that these questions that I'm giving you, this free resource, is going to be very, very helpful for you so that you know exactly what are some good characteristics of a really good therapist, right? I appreciate your support thus far, and thank you for sticking around and watching the video this long. Share that resource. Tell us what you did. We have to really be out here to help and support each other. And so, if you tried something or you did something, make sure you comment below what you tried or what you found helpful, because it could definitely help someone else. Also, if you have any questions and there's just something that I can't answer, I'm gonna make sure I go find the answer for you, okay? So, through the life of the channel, I'm gonna be introducing we're gonna have some really great interviews with people. We're gonna have some guest appearances on here as well that can help us as well navigate racism in the workplace. And so, I'm so excited about this channel and where it's headed. And a little tidbit about me, I'm also a vegan, y'all. I have been vegan for over 4 years. So I do offer vegan wellness coaching as well. But I bring that up to say that you might see a little bit of information about how you can eat well and eat better, incorporate more plant-based foods into your diet so that you can help to boost your mental health, improve your mood, simmer down the anxiety. So that's another thing that I'll also be including in the channel. So stay tuned. Again, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. go ahead and hit that notification bell so that you know every time I upload a video. I also want to say another thing. I am on social media, y'all. So make sure you follow me on Instagram and Facebook at The Wellness Room ATL. Again, that's The Wellness Room ATL. Basically, this was just a tidbit to just get you familiar with. If you're just looking for some more education around racial trauma, I encourage you to do some of your own research, but you know what? I'm gonna help you with that. So if you also click on that link in my description, it's gonna take you to my website. If you click on or hover over therapy and then you click on racial trauma, it's gonna take you to my page where I talk to you all about racial trauma. I explain what it is. I talk about what racial trauma therapy is, just give you a little bit more information about it and see if that really connects with you. But if you scroll just about all the way to the bottom of that page, you're also going to see a list of resources. Yes, girl, you know I'm the resource queen, okay? When my clients come to me, they get resources, they getting tools. Like, I'm gonna need for you to have what you need outside of therapy with me. So I have different resources for racial trauma, different books around racism and racial trauma that you might also find very, very helpful. So check it out. Let me know if you find something that you like. Let me know if you notice something isn't there. You're like, hey, Dr. April, can you look at adding this? Can you look into this, etc.? Absolutely. Like, I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys what you need and helping you along your healing journey. Like, this is what my channel is all about. Us empowering each other, healing together, and really just helping each other navigate the nuances of some of that workplace stress. And I will also say, I want to say a little tidbit about me as well. I get what you're going through. Even though I no longer work in a workplace setting, I understand what you might be going through because I used to be in that environment where things were very stressful, things were very difficult to navigate. And I've also had some of my own racial trauma experiences as well. It got to the point where I started to experience burnout and compassion fatigue. And then I had to take some steps to get up out of there. But we'll talk about that later on in the channel. I felt like this video was so all over the place, but at the end of the day, it's my first video. Videos after this will get a lot better, but I just wanted to introduce myself, who I am, what this channel is for a little bit, but also just give you a little bit of information about racial trauma. So far what we covered, we talked about the definition of racial trauma, some of the symptoms you experience with racial trauma, and we also talked about how you know racial trauma is actually impacting you or signs that it might be impacting you outside of the workplace. And then we covered what racial trauma or racism might look like in the workplace, okay? I appreciate you so much for watching this video, and I thank you so much for just taking the time to watch it all the way through. You know, a friend or someone that might be experiencing racism at work, that friend that call you talking about their job and their coworkers and how they just going through pure hell. That's the person you need to send this video to. If you find yourself wanting to ignore them when they call, that's the person you need to share this video with, okay? Also, if you know a friend who is thinking about going to therapy and you've been encouraging them to go to therapy, or maybe you want to go to therapy, girl, get your therapy on, okay, then you need to subscribe to my email so that you can get that resource, the 15 questions that you should ask before hiring a therapist, so that you feel prepared as you're going into the new therapeutic relationship with that therapist, and that you feel confident that that therapist is the right therapist for you. So with that being said, follow me on social media. I am at The Wellness Room ATL on Instagram and Facebook, and those links are below too, so you can just click those links really quick so that you can follow me. Let me know if you have any other questions or any concerns. If you have any ideas for maybe some future content that you want me to share or you hope that I cover, put it in the comment box below as well. And don't forget to hit that like button if you got some value out of this content. Hit that like button if you want to see more of Dr. April. Hit that like button because God gave me the courage today to hit that record button, okay? Hit that like button because you are also amazing, and what you're going through is temporary. It is not going to last forever, and you will get through this, okay? So stay encouraged, be well, and I will see you next time. Bye.